Hello, welcome to Old Soul Podcast. My name is Bree, that's spelled B-R-E-I. Thank you so much. Today I'm going to talk about the film Super 8. The reason why I wanted to talk about this film, it's directed by J.J. Abrams, by the way, is because I love it. I could give you 1,000,001 reasons why you should watch this film at least once. And today, I'm really just going to talk about the scenes that I really like and small details that really stand out from other films or just in general have their own little twist and their own little details that are things that you don't necessarily forget after you watch the film. Like things that you'll probably be thinking about years later, even though you haven't seen the film in years. So I wanted to start off by speaking about the chemistry between the child actors on set. I have read and watched a lot of videos about the behind the scenes, but it's been a few years since I did a deeper dive into the film, and I recently went back and looked through a few videos about Steven Spielberg's sort of aiding in this film and JJ's connection to watching and growing up on Spielberg films and sort of making his own, I don't want to say version, but there's clearly a connection with E.T. and a lot of Spielberg's sort of style, with JJ adding his own spin and sort of giving an ode to those films that he most likely grew up on and the films that he created as a kid. This film is very much a coming-of-age film that also delves into the harsher things about life in general that happen to just be shown through a child perspective. That being grief and loss, that's something you see in the film. Fear, not understanding each other, lack of communication, issues between adults and children, which just happens when you're growing up. Friendship, crushes, things like that. It's definitely a coming-of-age film. I know when I first wanted to watch this film, I originally thought that it was like a scary movie or a thriller, the way that it was marketed. And I don't know if they released several trailers for the film, but I remember when I saw the trailer, I thought it was going to be like a horror film, because the scene that I distinctively remember being marketed was when they were at this convenience shop. And it wasn't even the kids, the main characters. It was just this worker, and he had a Walkman on and he was listening to music, and he didn't hear all the noise outside. And this is actually a scene, but this is a scene obviously that they used for the trailer. And he gets grabbed and dragged across the convenience store, and it's just a chaotic mess. And it just sort of leads you to believe that this is going to be somewhat of a horror and thriller film, but I think this film is a lot more of an adventure, coming of age, and mystery film, and it definitely has the friendlier aspects. I am going to be comparing it to E.T. a little bit because they have a lot of connections, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm comparing them in a negative way. I think E.T. is an incredible film, and for something to come out years, decades even later, and to still be just as good, but still have its own personal spin that J.J. Abrams was able to do, I think that's commendable, and yes, it's so good. So yes, I'm going to be comparing, but I don't want people to get the wrong idea. So yes, it does have that element that E.T. had, where you're sort of fearing the unknown and the differences between these worlds, and you get that sort of same aspect with Super 8. They're not knowing what's going on, they're just slowly but surely noticing small things going wrong in their town. Some moments feel like this could be a thriller, but not often. The kids are starting to fear when they realize that something serious is going on. The adults, all wrapped up in sort of the struggles of family and friendship. Okay, so I'm going to connect this back to the chemistry on set between the child actors. Whoever casted this film, I don't know if there was a casting director involved, solely, and then obviously they spoke to the director and they did that, or if the director went out and like found him on their own, which doesn't happen that often, but sometimes it does. I'm sure JJ, Spielberg, they all have their hands in this, and it shows because it's so good. Like, it's so good, and you can see their styles on this. The actors were incredible, okay? But I'm just putting down the child actors because this was set, I believe, in the 1970s, I want to say. Maybe the 80s. It feels more like the 70s. But either way, their chemistry feels like real friendships. The use of specific slang words that are used, like mint. The wardrobe is incredible. The hairstyles, the cars, the soundtrack, not only the theme song that they use, through a composer who writes sort of the instrumentals and the score for the film, but the other songs that you would see on a soundtrack that probably came out during that time frame, it's really good. And it's edited in a way that it works all the time. Even when the characters are singing along with the song, it's still a part of the diegesis. Sometimes it's not a part of the diegesis, but the kids will sing along sometimes. It feels very real, very authentic, very childlike. And then we go into these other elements where it's like a film within a film. So we see that the kids in the film are filming their own sort of zombie movie while experiencing this sort of weird phenomenon in their small town at the same time, while the main character Joe is grieving the loss of a parent. By the way, spoilers all the time. At this point I don't really need to say that there's spoilers. If I'm going to talk about the film, I'm going to have to talk about the film, and that's going to give you spoilers. So yeah, if you're wanting to watch this film, you should totally just go watch it before listening to this. Anyway, and it's really cool how they have, like, the friends have, like, their director, their makeup artists, their actors. It's so cute. And they do talk about that sort of film within a film. Like, one of the characters wants to be like a director, and he's trying to put his film into this this competition, and he just gangs all his friends together to help him make the film. And it's really cute, and they do show you a snippet of the film at the end of the movie, closer to the end credits, so you should stay and watch that to see the final product. It's great. Sorry if I'm saying a lot. I'm just really thinking and looking through my notes. So what else? Speaking of zombies, there's a scene that Elle Fanning, her name is Alice in the movie, that's her character's name, but Elle Fanning has this moment where Joe's doing her makeup and she's also practicing this zombie scene. And can we just talk about how good Elle Fanning is at acting? She's very young at this age, but she has obviously done other films before Super 8. But she just clicks on the zombie character in seconds, and it's solid and it's believable, and it's such a small moment in the film, but I really, 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 really love it. There's this weird connection between Joe and Alice's character, who are the children of Joe's the child of a police officer, and then Alice is the child of I want to say he's a warehouse worker, and Joe's mom also worked in that same warehouse, and there becomes this really sad connection between them, and it's such a sad scenario that could almost be seen as really dark for a film that does definitely feel like it's coming of age, but I really like that. I feel like so often it's great to have a lighthearted story about children, especially when you get into the issues of middle grade versus high school, but sometimes I feel like people want to protect children so much that they forget that there are children who really do have to grieve when they're 12 years old. And maybe those children want to see films of other kids who are grieving like they are at 12 years old. I'm not saying that we should expose children to harsh realities if it's not like necessary. Like sometimes life happens and there's no other choice, but you're trying to help your kid by taking them to a therapist or speaking to them or really unraveling that. But I like that the film is able to delve into those really sad aspects about life without sugarcoating it, and they don't give you too much exposition. They give you just enough bit by bit to where you really find out why there's so much tension between the parents and why Alice acts the way that she does to Joe through most of the movie, which is usually pushing him away. It's really beautiful, very, very well done. The train scene where they don't shoot all of their mini zombie movie during the train scene, but it is a big moment because the camera falls over, which is the Super 8 camera, by the way, which I think is the essential connection with the title. Maybe not, but it seems like that's the connection overall. But there's a moment where the camera falls and there's explosions and there's a huge train crash, and they honestly probably could have died and they don't, which is another element of the reality is that sometimes people do die. They don't always come back to life, and that's another element of it's sort of darker for coming of age, especially feeling friendly movie. This is definitely a family friendly movie, but like I said, it delves into those darker aspects that are very realistic and authentic, and it does it just right. And so they do all survive. For the most part, they find out more layers to why there was a crash, so on and so forth. But the scene is really beautiful and crazy, and there's so much going on, but not in a bad way. There's a lot going on. There's so much to pay attention to. You might even want to watch that scene a few times, but it's really good. I'm trying to think of something else. I spoke pretty much about everything that I wanted to bring up in the film. I think the last scene that I wanted to speak about was the ending. So through most of the movie, Joe, and this is why I bring up grieving, through most of the movie, Joe, the main child character, has this necklace that reminds him of his mother, and there's a picture of his mother inside this necklace, and you know, he always has it with him. You see a few moments where the camera focuses in on him touching it. Not so much a close-up, but you know, you notice. And in the end, they go through this crazy journey trying to figure out what's going on, and they find this mysterious person, thing, otherworldly situation. And I'm not going to give you all the details. I'm going to try not to spoil this much. So Joe, they get through that, and they get through that by not using violence, not using cover-ups, lies, but by being honest, by opening themselves up. And I also think this is sort of a metaphor for Joe's ability to finally realize that, one, his mom's not coming back, two, that bad things happen, right? It's said even in the film. And Joe is finally deciding to grieve, to push himself further. And you see him holding out his necklace of his mom, and for some reason that necklace is being drawn away from him, and the camera just holds, and everyone's watching the necklace, I'm assuming, or they're watching the water tower that's pulling at the necklace for a very specific reason, which you'll see when you watch the film. And Joe's holding on to it for just a few more moments. The latch comes undone on the necklace that's sort of like a locket, and there's a picture of his mom, and it holds, and there's the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song, and boom, Joe lets go of that locket. It's such a great moment. It's so sad. It gets me every time. But I think that people don't make films like this. They just don't. J.J. Abrams has done such a great job with Super 8. I don't know if it's one of those films that's underrated. I don't hear a lot about Super 8 outside of people who are really interested in film that I hang around. People that I've heard about it that are around me that are like my friends, usually I've told them about the film. I've never had anyone tell me that they've heard of Super 8. Just randomly, you know, everyone talks about a lot of films, the blockbusters, but it's a shame. But then again, I don't know, maybe a lot of people do know more about this film than I think. If not, soul crushing. Anyway, you should go and watch Super 8 at some point and tell me if you cry at the ending, because it's so sad and I literally love it so much. And this is one of those films that I'll never get tired of. It's definitely on my top list of must-sees and one of the best films I have ever seen, period. I am not one to be over dramatic about films. This is a fantastic film and you won't regret it. I'll leave you with that.